Good morning, everybody. We're running a little bit early now, so we'll just wait a minute, see who else turns up, and we will kick off at 11 o'clock in sunny Brisbane and have a chat for sort of 45 minutes or so about some mindset, about what you go through in the journey from start to finish. So sit back, grab yourself a cup of coffee, and we'll fire up in about 5 minutes. There is that. That's gone. We're good to go. Welcome everybody to my Wednesday webinar, The Business Life Cycle. And what we're going to talk about today is the basic 4 stages of your business journey. And it doesn't matter where you are in this stage. Hopefully I can give you a little bit of insight, a little bit of wisdom, or at least an idea of what, where you should be headed. Now, the thing about this is that it doesn't really matter what business you're in. The principles are the same. That's really how it works. So in the beginning, in the first stage, right, you've got your idea, you've got the new version of sliced white bread, and you want to take that dream into the real world. So it doesn't matter whether you're a tech startup, it doesn't matter whether you're a traditional bricks and mortar retailer, or you're doing a buyout of the business you work in or another business, or you're starting a service industry. It's still the same 5 questions you're going to go through. Will my idea work? Yeah, okay, it works now for them, but will it work for me? How do I get started? How do I make this thing happen? How do you manage the business, and how do you protect all of your ideas? Now, at this point, if you're experiencing a bit of self-doubt, if you're sitting there just going, geez, I don't know about this, a bit of fear, a bit of excitement, I would hope, that's fine, perfect. You're on track. You're actually right. You're heading in the right direction. You're doing exactly what everybody else who's succeeded before you has done. Okay, it's perfectly normal. This emotional roller coaster. That's the way it is. Okay, don't panic about that. If you're sitting there and you've got no fear, no self-doubt, you're not excited, yeah, mate, I'd be looking for something else. I'd be thinking that this is just not working properly. You're not heading in the right direction. Okay. But this time, okay, when you're going through that emotional roller coaster, this is a critical time. It's where you lay all the foundations for your success. Right? You'll make some mistakes. Don't worry about that. That'll happen. But this is where you get the basics right. Okay. And it's also where in doing that, you often change direction. All right, sorry, pivot is the really cool buzzword, but it's just a case of you're just going to do things a little differently because that way clearly didn't work. Okay, now when you're building your business plan, which we all do because everybody has a business plan, don't they? All right, we come back here. All righty. There's basically 5 questions that are going to form the foundation of that, or the bones of the plan. Okay. Your big idea, what problem are you solving? All right, that's the whole point of being in business, is to solve the problem and make somebody else's life a bit easier. So lay it out. What is it you're doing? Why are you doing it? Okay, there's a problem to be solved. Well, so what? Why are you the person to solve it? Why is your solution the answer? Okay, again, lay it out, and that will help you down the track, trust me. Who? Okay, principles and structure. Who's who in the zoo, and what sort of legal structure are you going to do? Well, we'll expand all these in a second. Okay, how are you going to do it? Okay, yes, there's the problem, and this is why you're the person to fix it, and these are the people involved in the way you're going to do it. But the structure you're going to use. But how are you actually going to put all that together and make it work? And don't forget to throw in a timeline from start to finish. And I'll dive into that in a second too, but by finish, I mean finish, like you're out the door into the next big idea, okay? The really cool thing about timelines is that even though they're written in pen, they're not welded on steel, okay? They can change, they will change, I guarantee you that. But if you don't put down a timeline, there's a good chance that you're not going to stick to anything, okay? You've got to have some benchmarks, some actual trigger points where things are supposed to happen, right? Some markers in the ground. Now, this is super important, right? At this point in time, you don't need all the answers. In fact, in 30 odd years of business, I don't think I've ever had all the answers at one particular point in time. But you've got to have the questions in front of you. If you don't have the questions in front of you, you're simply not going to get started the right way. The foundations won't be laid the right way, and sooner or later it'll go zig instead of zag, and that's going to hurt. All right, so lay the questions out and then just work your way through. So once you've done that, this is where you start to lay the foundations of the business, right? So you've started off with who, what, where, how, why. Right? You've got your questions lined up. You know where the business plan is going to come from. You've got all that laid out. So now you start actually fleshing it out. This is the second stage where you start doing the real research and the resource. Now, for those of you who are wondering, there's no set timeline in terms of how long each stage takes. It takes as long as it takes. Okay, some people can do the first 5 questions like that. They already know what they want to do. Some people take a month to work out the first 5. The legal structure, the actual problem, why they're the person to solve it, all those things, they can take forever to work out. But once you've got them nutted out, then you jump into how you're going to into your research and how you're going to resource it. Okay, you're going to build the structure that actually enables you to deliver the solution. All right, so you map out the answers to all your questions. Now, as we went through before, what's the gap in the market? What's the problem? There's got to be something that you're solving. Otherwise, there's no reason to be in business. You must just get a job and fix somebody else's problem for them. Okay? Why? And this is the crux. This is the one you've got to get right. Why are you doing this? Okay, I can tell you now, business is an insane trip. If you haven't figured it out by now, it's a roller coaster. Okay, some good days and some bad days, and then you have some really bad days, and then you have some really cool days, and then you got some stuff in the middle. Right? It's not a case of go in, punch the clock, and go home. It is simply not that at all. All right. So figure out your motivation, because this is key. This drives your business culture. This is the one thing that underpins everything. Literally everything. All right? Figure out why. Figure out your motivation, because that is key. Take some time with that. Get some mentors. Talk to people who are in similar businesses, who are in different businesses, who aren't even in business, and figure out why it is you're the person to solve the problem, why you're doing it. Okay, you've got to have that nailed, because if you don't, when things get rough, you won't survive. Okay, if you haven't got that, you just simply won't survive, I can guarantee you. Who? The principals. Who are you? Okay, is it just you? Is it you and your wife? Is it you and your partner? Is it you and your cousin? Is it you and 7 mates? Skill sets, knowledge gaps, work it all out. And I put knowledge gaps there deliberately because knowledge gaps are key. I have a favourite, it's a favourite saying, if you like it, it's an approach. It's like, do what you do really well, outsource the rest. Okay? Knowledge gaps, outsource. Right? Get buy people in to fix the problems. Okay? Your legal structure. I've seen too many people set up as sole traders in businesses that have significant risk in terms of risk to their asset base and risk to their personal credit standing. Don't do it. Go talk to your accountant and talk to your solicitor. Okay, get both sides of the coin to set up the appropriate legal structure. And that's not just risk management. That's also cash flow management. Okay, how are you going to deal with the profit from the business? Okay, how are you going to distribute that out to the various beneficiaries? If you've got multiple partners, what about your shareholders agreement? Okay, or a joint venture agreement? Who's drawing that up for you? And have you all sat around the table and worked out who's going to do what, who's responsible for what, who gets the money? You know, that's the name of the game. Take some time to get that right, because if you get that wrong, fixing it is expensive, time consuming, and can go sideways very, very quickly. And again, talking from personal experience, you don't want to have to come back and fix it later. I'll give you a great example of why I'm sort of harping on this a little bit. Okay. Back in the day, I did a lot of agribusiness, a lot of agricultural lending. And in agribusiness, especially in the smaller end of the market in Australia, you've got it's predominantly family business. They might have a company involved, but it's all family. And one of my really good clients was a blend of families. One brother had inherited, the other brothers had come in, their wives, they got married, their wives had got involved, there were kids working on the farm, kids working off the farms. They've got property in different names, some in his name, some in their names, some in her name, some in all names, some in... I sat down there when I took over this relationship and I laid it out on a big piece of paper in terms of who was what, where, who owned what, the different companies that were involved, and said, what happens if we pull the string, like a little thread here, if this person trips over, falls under a tractor and dies? What if we pull that string out? What happens then? Because that person's wife hasn't got her name on anything. And they all sort of looked at me And I looked back at them, and when they were saying, one of them went, "Oh, crap." I said, "Yeah, well, you think about that. And what about the kids? Like, how do they factor into this? And what about wills and the estate? And what if this guy who's key, because his name's on just about everything, what if he dies? Because his wife's name's not on anything either." Oh, I said, okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go away, talk to your accountant and talk to your solicitor, and you're going to come up with a better way of doing business. There's either a rock solid partnership agreement, or we restructure everything into a corporate name, or something. Okay, it's not my, I mean, I can fix it, but I'm not going to do it. You go away and sort all that out. That took 3 weeks and cost a bucket of dough. All right, and that was money that could have been used elsewhere in the business because they didn't do it right at the start, because that's just the way that Dad did it. So legal structure, I hammer it a bit because I've seen it, because when it goes wrong, it goes really wrong, really badly. Okay. All right, get off the hobby horse, put that away. Mentors. Okay. You need to get an external view on what you're doing. All right, a classic example I can actually quote now because it's just sort of doesn't come to light. There's a guy called Nick Bell. Okay, one of Australia's, what do they call them? It's now the Australian Financial Review Rich List. And he's worth a lazy, I don't know, 250 odd million apparently. Started his first business in uni, sold that for 35 million, quite successful, really super successful. And he just made the point the other day that he didn't get a mentor until about 5 years ago. Just to do it, he just struggled along, just didn't really know what he was doing, had year-on-year growth of about 40% across his businesses until about 5 years ago. Brought some mentors on board and his growth became 127% or thereabouts. That's enormous. That's just ridiculous, because he got some external view on the business, he got some external advice, and he just changed the way he was doing business. It's actually that simple. It truly actually is that simple. And the beauty of third parties is the advice is impartial, it's objective, right? They might be a great mate of yours who's in business. They might be not necessarily family, but they've got a close relationship with you. But push comes to shove with business, they don't care. It's not their business. They're just going to say, this is what they would do in that situation. It's impartial. They don't have a dog in the fight. They're just giving you advice. So get yourself some mentors and advisors. And if you don't know where to look, I would suggest that you get onto something like LinkedIn and have a look at what's going on there. And again, coming back to Nick Bell, if you want to go hunting for some mentors and advisors, check out Nick Bell on LinkedIn, because he runs a little side hustle called Lisnick, which hooks up mentors and mentees, and he's got some serious heavy hitters on that. And you'll get absolutely impartial, objective advice out of that. Or just go to your local Chamber of Commerce, see who's who in the zoo, have a chat, see what the feedback is. Okay? How? And again, the big ones: production, finance, marketing, admin, culture, people. Now, culture and people you can kind of stick together a little bit. But out of all those, the key one is culture. And that comes back to why. Okay, why are you doing it? Culture, that will underpin everything. That will drive your production, that will drive how you fund the business, that will drive your marketing efforts, particularly your marketing efforts. It'll underpin how your admin people operate, what their focus is, your people, your culture, your people, your HR side of the business. That'll simply revolve around why you're doing business. It is the focus, it's how you measure your results, it's the focus of everything. Okay, so again, you're going to lay all that out. This is where you start figuring out how you're going to make and produce what you do, whether it's a service or a left-handed widget made from Iranian aluminium or a simple handmade basket out of rushes from a local swamp. It doesn't matter. You're going to map out how you're going to produce your goods. Marketing, how you're going to let people know, how they're going to get in touch with you, how they're going to buy off you. Your finance, how you're going to pay for everything. And if you tuned in yesterday, I went through a whole hour on cash flow management, how to maximize the cash flow of your business without spending money. I'll run it again next week. If you want to come back next Tuesday, have a listen to that. Admin, how you're actually going to make sure that everything happens when it happens and you actually know what's going on and you get paid and you pay everybody and the wheels don't fall off. Never underestimate that. Okay, do not, if you're going to short spend on anything, don't make it admin, for goodness sake. Because as soon as that goes sideways, it doesn't matter what you're doing everywhere else, you've got no idea what's going on. Culture, spoken about that once or twice, and your HR side of things. HR in Australia, the industrial relations landscape in Australia is an archaic nightmare, even still. So I would suggest strongly that if it comes to HR, get some external advice. This is where you really want to outsource at the start and get some external advice on what you're supposed to do, what awards apply, if any, enterprise agreements, if you want to go down that track. That whole HR structure, got to go to a HR lawyer and get some expert advice. And there's a ton of them around. Okay, if you're in Brisbane, I think you'll find at the end of the presentation there's my contact details. If you want some advice or some contacts in that area, or really in any of these areas, shoot me a quick note. I'll come back to you with some names of people who know exactly what they're doing and they do it right every time, and they're very comfortable and they're structured to suit the small end of the market, like our end, the small business end. You're under 20, you're not that massive. They're the people to talk to. Okay, and when, like I said before, timelines, set some dates, put some markers in the ground so you know when you're supposed to have things done by. Now, I'll guarantee you again, you're going to miss some. Okay, every deadline will not be met. But if you haven't got you're not going to meet a deadline you haven't set. So at least set some, give yourself something to aim towards and put a bit of pressure on yourself to get things done. Okay? Now, once you've done all that, happy days. Actually, we come back one step. When you look at the why, the what and the why, okay, and then we come forward. So let's have a look at your competitors. Okay, now I would suggest that the what and the why revolve around the fact that your competitors are not doing a great job. Because if they were doing a great job, there'd be no what, there'd be no why, because it's already been done. Okay, now, if you want to have a good look at them, tap into your network and get some advice. And that's what I spoke to about before with mentors and advisors. Chamber of Commerce is a great spot to start. Have a look at what everybody else is doing, and in particular, have a look at the people in your market. What are they up to? Okay, clearly there's a gap where we wouldn't be having this conversation, but what are they doing? Because they'll be doing some stuff right. Okay, and what you do then is you copy it. If they're doing it right, then blatantly rip it off. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Unless you're going to run into IP or trademark issues and copyright issues. But if they're the way they do business, have a look at it. And if there's stuff that works, that's fine. You can copy that. And then have a look at what they do wrong and do something else. Okay, and if there's stuff they're not doing, okay, is there a reason for that? Is it because it shouldn't be done, can't be done, or simply because they haven't got around to doing it yet? If they haven't got around to doing it yet, there's another gap for you. Now, this last thing I've got here, down the bottom here. Chamber of Commerce, LinkedIn mentors, just general business people in general. You may very well be surprised how many of them are quite happy to share their time and their wisdom with people who have the fortitude to stand up on their back legs and ask. Right? If you ask the right people the right questions, you'll get the answers you're looking for. Okay, if you don't ask, you won't get. I guarantee you. Nobody wanders around town offering unsolicited advice. Okay, so Chambers of Commerce, again, you'll find a lot of people there. There are accelerators and incubators for startups, and to be honest, you don't necessarily have to be a startup or a tech business to rock along with these things. Just see who's who in the zoo and see what they've got to say, because some of the people there actually aren't. They're there providing advice. They're not there starting the next best Microsoft. They're actually there giving people a hand. So there's no reason why you can't tap into those. Right? There's also, there's a ton of business coaches around. There's a ton of consultants. Like ASBAS itself is full of advisors who will give you this advice as we are like today for free or for a very, very low cost, like a massively subsidized cost. So just take a minute, pop your head up and have a look around and get some external advice. Now, the third stage, and this is where the rubber hits the road. Okay, we're going to make the magic happen. We're going to actually sit out there and we're going to provide our solution to the marketplace, reinvent the world, and all will be well. Most days. Okay, so yes, this is when it gets real. Okay, this is when you actually start putting yourself on the line. Okay, no, there are no shortcuts. I don't care what anybody tells you. I really don't care what anybody tells you. There's no shortcuts. Okay, there's smarter ways of doing things, but there's no shortcuts. It will take time and it will take effort. and it will take what it takes. Okay, somebody says there's a 3-month job. Yeah, probably, maybe. Okay, but it'll take the time it takes to do it properly. And yes, it's not a job. Okay, you don't get to start at 9 and clock off at 5. It doesn't work like that. You work crazy hours. That's the nature of the beast. Okay, so again, and that you look at those 3 there, and if you're thinking, well, just why are we doing that? Well, that's exactly the correct question. Spot on. Why are you doing it? So the why kicks in here right at the start. This is why. You've got the why, then the how doesn't matter. You just make it happen. Okay, you do what you have to do. Now, so into production. Happy days. Now, this is where your resilience, your commitment, your sheer bloody willpower will be tested every day, more than once probably. Now, this timeline, it takes what it takes, guys. Okay, some businesses are set up to deliver a solution for a short period of time. They're a quick setup. They fix a problem, they go away. Okay, or they get bought out. Usually, though, this production phase takes years. Right? You're actually in there solving problems for years, and that for a lot of people, that's the plan. Okay, they don't plan to get in and out quickly. Okay, they plan to set a business up that they will run and operate for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. They're timelines, but it's a long-term plan. Okay, and that's fine. That is what it is. Comes back to the start where you're laying out timelines and you map out how long you're going to be at the coalface making stuff happen. Okay, and part of that planning process, I would suggest, would involve you not being at the coalface. Okay, it's an old adage. You want to work on the business, not in the business. Day 1, you're going to be in there. Okay, probably day 7, 8, 9, and 10, you'll be in there up to your armpits. But if you want long-term value in your business, if you want to build a business rather than just a job with a fancy business card, if you want to build a business, then you've got to build one that operates without you. You've got to have systems and processes, and I hammer on this in some other webinars, to duplicate your efforts so you can have people in your team who do what you do almost as well as you do it without you being there. That's the whole point. Okay, so again, timelines work out when you get to that point where you transition from operations to overseeing. Okay. Discipline. Yes, no, I'm not talking about the little studio down the road. I'm talking about systems and processes. They are your best friends. Okay. If you want a brilliant example, an age-old brilliant example of systems and processes, McDonald's. They do it the same way, the same time, all over the world. Now, the menus vary from country to country a little bit, the same staples, but some regional variations. But geez, the way they deliver, the way they sell, the way they cook, the branding, everything, systems and processes, it's the same. Okay, it's the beauty. It's one of the best business systems in the world. Okay. Now, the reason is that your cash flow management, your sales processes, and your people need a framework, right? They've got to have a framework to operate within, and they need systems to monitor their performance, so you know when things are going right and you know when things are going not right, and you can step in and bring them back to the right side of the ledger. Okay, you don't want to be guessing at this stage. You certainly don't want to guess about those 3 items there. No way in the world. So when you have something that works in the business, write it down. Right? Literally document the process, document the systems you use, because then you've got something you can refer to. So when people come on board, you go, hey, team, this is what we do. This is why we do it. And this bit here is how we do it every time. And that way you're delivering that consistency that customers look for, that excellent service. And if you want to tune back in tomorrow, got a whole hour on the beauty and the benefits and the payoff of doing that right. This is where you start really building a business. Because if you want a business, you need this. It's as simple as that. Now, as soon as you've got started, okay, improvements. Come back one step. Improvements. You start improving your business around about 3 minutes after you open the doors for the first time, give or take. Okay, you've always got to be thinking about how you're going to improve it, about the signals that are coming out of your performance monitoring systems that we designed in the previous slide, so you know what your cash flow, your sales, and your people are up to. And that way you can identify issues and opportunities such as strategies to build repeat business. People that tomorrow, 11 o'clock, same bat time, same bat channel, got a whole hour on that. Okay, that is my favorite webinar. It is a topic that it's just money for nothing, really is. Okay, now perhaps you're a one-off purchase or you're a service business. Okay, and a lot of, as an example of this, okay, a lot of small suburban solicitors are really one-off purchases. They do a bucket of conveyancing, they do some estate work, and as far as the 90% of the population are concerned, they never see them again. Okay, if you're doing that, you need referral business because you certainly don't have repeat business. How are you going to set in place a system to deliver that? Okay, improving your staff turnover. It can be too high. I mean, really, in a business, you want staff that are in there doing the same job, driving it every day. If you've got constant staff turnover, that's a cost to the business. You've got to train new staff. You've got that slowdown in production because they're not up to speed, and then they leave. You've got to do it all over again. Okay, or your staff turnover could be too low, and that's the old saying. I would rather have well-trained staff who leave than poorly trained staff who stay. Okay, there are times when you really need to move some people on, and performance monitoring, you can identify the issue and you put in place some systems that will rectify that for you. Your production is inefficient. Okay, what are the numbers in your accounting system showing you? Okay, performance monitoring. Are your work in progress hours blowing out? Are your stock levels too high? You know, what's going on in the actual mechanics of the business? Okay, cash flow is constrained. I mean, that was yesterday's. I mean, both of those are yesterday's webinar. Run it again for you next Tuesday. Come and have a listen. Okay. Despite the fact that you've got good sales figures, what's stopping the bank account growing? Why are you always struggling to pay the bills? Performance monitoring. Okay, put some systems in place. Have a look at the numbers. Okay, and your gut instinct will give you some heads up on all of this, but it's the actual data. So you're making data-driven decisions that counts. Okay, the one that you can't use data. Competitors are developing better products. Well, your sales data will show that because your sales will drop off. Oops, come back. Okay, so how do you know your competitors are developing better products? Because you've got market intelligence. Okay, you're talking to people in the industry, you're talking to your customers, and you're watching what your competitors do all the time. Because if you're not doing that, they will develop a better solution. They'll look at what you're doing, because I can guarantee you your competitors are watching you. If you're coming out with a better mousetrap because there's a gap in the market that you're going to solve, which is why you started the business, if you're doing all that, I can guarantee you that they're watching you. Okay, and they'll look at what you're doing and they'll say, okay, he's basically taking our lunch off us. Well, we're not going to have that. And they'll try and either imitate or improve on what you're doing. So you need to watch them so that you can then imitate what they're doing, at least match them in the market, but better still, you want to improve. Okay, and the better mousetrap gets the bigger prize. Okay, and to a certain extent, that's the second mouse theory. Okay, second mouse gets the cheese. Okay, they go out there, they do something, you're watching, they've made a mistake. Cool, you come in and you fix the problem. So you grab the cheese, but then they're watching you and they see that maybe you haven't filled all the gaps, so they'll go grab the gap that you haven't filled. So you're watching them and around we go. Well, that's business. But again, you need a system to do that. Okay, it's not a case of, oh, it's Thursday, I might just go for a walk around town and see what's happening. Formalize it. Okay, set some diary time up to actually research and have a look at what your competitors are doing. Okay, to get in touch with your customers and find out what they're doing in terms of purchasing decisions, why they buy from you, why they don't buy from you, why they didn't buy from you a second time. Okay, have mystery shop your competitors. Okay, see what their processes are like in terms of dealing with customers. Have a look at what they're offering the public. Okay, it's not difficult. It just takes discipline and focus. Now, exit. Okay, we've got about 10 minutes. We'll just run through this and then we'll have some Q&A. Exit. Exit was something we planned right back at the beginning. And I'm just going to run back. Actually, no, I won't. It'll take too long. When you finish, okay, it's time to head to the beach. All right. The most forgotten stage of business planning, without a doubt. And you should have planned it right at the start. Okay, timeline, start to finish. There's a reason I said that, right? And I mean finish, you're out the door, because that's when you plan your exit, okay? You don't want to be sitting down after 15 years in business and go, okay, well, geez, I want to retire now, or I've got another great idea I want to go start. I've got to sell this business to go and build the new business, and then try and figure out how you're going to do it, okay? You want to have that planned as early as possible, because that will form part of how you structure the business and how you go about business, because you've got a way of moving on, okay? I've yet to meet anybody who has said, yep, I want to die in the office, right? I want to be standing at the lathe, making another widget and bang, drop off. That's my dream. No one has ever told me that. Okay, and I've asked a few people, like, what's the plan? You ever think about actually dying in the saddle, so to speak? And they look at me like I'm a raving idiot. They go like, who wants to do that? No one want to be on the, they've got a million variations on where, how, and why. None of them are at work in the business. Not one. Now, it may be that I simply mix with the wrong people, perhaps, but I look at people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, and I would be honestly surprised if their dream was to die in the office, despite the fact that they spend nearly all their life there. I would find that a stunning outcome. So anyway, plan your exit. Have a think about how you're going to get out and when you're going to get out, because that forms the key to a lot of what you do. Now, as I just said, that's where they put their energy. Everyone's looking at the actual, especially in startup, oh my goodness, there's so much time and energy that goes into getting the business right. And then once you've got it pumping along, you've got to balance out your family life as you define it. And you don't think about how you're actually going to get out. All right, so I'm saying it's plan it. Okay, it's just critical. Now, let's have a look at 3 ways, the 3 most common ways of exiting, being trade sale, family handover or buyout, and liquidation. All right. I threw liquidation in there because it's actually more common than you would think, and not for the reasons that you think. Trade sale. Now, if you're going to do this, get a professional business broker in. Okay, why? Easy. They sell businesses. They know what prospective purchasers are looking for. They know how to present your business in the best possible way. And that's why you get them in at the start and say, listen, we're starting this business off. If we want to sell it in 15 years' time, what are the punters going to be looking for? Okay. And again, it helps with your structure. It helps with the actual mechanics in the office and how you do things. Okay. And because you're going to have to provide clarity around things like your customer base, your record keeping, what drives your cash flow, and your business systems. Remember, systems and processes right at the start. Well, this is another reason why. This is where the advice of a business broker is critical. Okay, now I know a few, have dealt with them over the years with various things that we've done, and they always express their regret. They're brought in at the last minute, and there's so much tidying up to do. And they've often come to me to try and fund one of their clients' little business they've got for sale. And we'll sit there and we go through the business they're trying to sell, the financials, the record keeping, the whole box and dice, and you just shake your head and you think, look, guys, why didn't you talk about this a year ago, 2 years ago? Why didn't you talk about this at the start and get it right at the start? So this process we're having now would go just like that. It'd be so smooth. All right. Now, one thing which we see occasionally and tend to celebrate a little bit is where the vendor, that would be you, they've got new product lines. They've got ways that the incoming buyer can add value to the business that they simply haven't had the time or the opportunity to exploit. Don't be afraid to identify those and lay it out as a sweetener. Okay, new sales channels is always a beautiful one where you're doing stuff that you don't have time for. Now, family handover and buyout. Now, honestly, as I say, it's a variation of the trade sale. It's kind of the same. Much easier if you plan it early, especially with family members who have the passion and the skill set. Noting, of course, that you can develop the skills, but it's very hard to develop the passion. Okay, you hire for attitude, you train for skill. Family members. Now, if you're going to do this, okay, if this is one of your options, and to be honest, when it comes to sale, there's 2 or 3 ways you can go out. You can plan for all of them. The methodology is fairly similar. If you're going to do this, get your success and strategy in place early and be prepared to walk away at the agreed time. Okay, and I've seen more than once where, and again, particularly in agribusiness, where there's been a planned handover to family and dad just can't let go, can't do it. Like the whole freeze. And it's a case of a deal's a deal, but he just can't quite let go and things go sideways a bit. Right? Or you've got, especially with a lot of, again, with agriculture, we've got 2 or 3 sons and the handover thing is like, well, who actually gets it? If you don't structure it at the start, get it right at the start, and it goes much smoother. Okay, there's less debate, there's less drama, and everything works much better, and you get the best result for you as the business owner. And coming back to the previous points, okay, clarity around customer base. Oops, come back here. Sorry. Clarity, customer base, record keeping, cash flows, drivers, business systems, okay, new product lines, sales channels. If you're going to do the family handover, they should be involved in the business. They should be all over that. You should have it in place for them so that when you do the handover, it's smooth. Because one thing with business sales, when you've got new owners and new management, is you want to make that as smooth as possible. It's particularly if you've got a clause where you're staying in the business for 3 or 6 or 12 months. Make it as smooth as possible so that you're actually adding value to their business. Makes it easier to walk away. Now, the last one, liquidation. Usually the option of last resort. Well, it is pretty much the option of last resort. But if you've got a business which is purely your skill set, that's a lot of service businesses, to be honest, all right, where it's all about you, then this is often the only option you've got. If you're actually that critical to the business where you cannot be replaced, then that is what it is. All right. It's not a bad thing. It just is. And sometimes it happens when you can't find a buyer and nobody in the family wants to know about it. They've all walked away. Plan early. All right, because if you plan early, if you're going to liquidate a business, then you're talking about really selling just plant equipment if somebody else can use it, a customer book if somebody else can service it, and if you're in that situation, then not necessarily liquidation is possibly not your best option. There is a market there for a trade sale, but if it just comes down to you, then you should be maximising the cash that you're taking out of the business, right? Punching that up to the max, so when you walk away, all right, the actual asset left behind is as small as you can possibly make it. Okay, you want to have those funds set aside for your next stage in life, for your next big plan. You really want to structure it up right at the start. And again, comes back to, if we just go back 2 slides, professional business broker. Again, if you think, and we'll just jump forward again, if you think when you're setting up that, you might not be able to duplicate yourself, you might not have something here to sell at the end of the day, it's really just a cash cow that you're putting in place with no long-term value. If that's what you think you've got, talk to a business broker and get their opinion on how that sets up, because you could be wrong. Be fine, nothing wrong with that. But if you're right, then go back and talk to your accountant and your solicitor about how you're going to structure it so you can maximise the cash that comes out and you can walk away with as much as possible. That's the whole plan. Now, when you get to the end here, okay, there's my contact details. Okay, if you have a whole ton of questions, you can fire up now. That's perfectly okay. The Q&A should be open for you to type into. Otherwise, feel free to contact me directly by email or phone, and I can provide more detailed advice in a more private situation. No dramas there at all. And certainly through Business Station, we deliver some one-on-one consulting, and again, at that free to discounted rate. No dramas there whatsoever. Okay, so I'll just let that sit there for a couple of seconds, and we'll see how we go with some questions. Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, I think we'll wind it up today. Thank you very much for attending. I really appreciate your time and I hope that I've added some value to what you have in mind. Like I said, tomorrow I've got a webinar on building long-term customers and customer advocates. It's really subtitled Cash Flow for Free. Okay, it's the cheapest form of building your business that I know of. If you've got a better way, I'd love to hear it. Tune in, 45 minutes of fun. Don't forget to bring your penguin. It'll be very important to have a penguin tomorrow. And if you turn up tomorrow, you'll understand why. And I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks, guys. Cheers.